public hearing to be a special session to listen to presentation of the county proposed budget for 2023 and the thing everyone's waiting for is the proposed tax rate. These have all been published and on our website available in the offices. I'd like to lead it off and open with some things. And this budget this year, because we had new financial software, kind of brought together more people involved in it than we've ever had before. And we also had one of our key players that has prepared this budget for over 40 years, Mr. Willie Wall, was not in the group. He stuck with us through June and hugged us and said goodbye after that time. And, I want to thank our auditor, Cheryl Jones, and her staff, implementing the new Munis software, and then also to thank Nancy Gregory and Debbie Hankins, who have paired up and we did some rearranging of personnel.
Judge, your mic's not on.
Gosh, all those right words.
Take two.
Yes, it is. No, I checked that.
Here, Judge, take mine.
Okay, how close you gonna scoot over?
I'm not gonna say anything.
I just want to know, big boy.
Just carry on.
All right, thank you.
I'll see if I can get it working.
Yeah, been there a lecture meeting.
Well, I can say whatever I want to.
Yeah.
And then the judge said.
All right.
Judge, you don't mind.
That'll confuse them. All right. But I also want to be sure to thank Nancy and also Morgan Ezel in our office, or Ezel, excuse me, Siri calls her Ezel.
Oh, no.
I have to think different when I try to call the office, okay. These people came together, we worked, we met with people. I see Chief Rutledge back there. The sheriff has the biggest budget, and Chief, we do appreciate all of your effort in sticking with us to get through this. It's really a very straightforward budget. The thing I think confused some people and had me look, SB 6 was created in the previous legislative session, the 85th, wasn't it, Jim?
86.
86, that's right, we're getting ready to go to 88, holy cow, it's a lot of sessions, not counting all the specials. At any rate, in that, it changed some terminology that we'd all had, and it also limited local governments, being cities and counties, to a maximum of 3.5% increase in the taxes unless you go for voter approval. And previous 2 years, Wichita County stuck with the no new revenue rate, which due to our increase in property value was actually a decrease in your tax rate, not necessarily a decrease in the taxes paid, because you had probably increased value. So it should have been roughly about the same. And so this year we had actually up to 7% to play with instead of just the 3.5%. And so we looked at that. We have some very efforted rate of tax increase and use of reserve funds and other funds to try to implement some pay increases for our personnel. The number of people we're losing to other agencies, other counties, other cities, drastically affects our ability to operate. The really nice $72 million jail that the voters approved and was built and opened last November, completely open. It had been a law enforcement center open for months prior to that. But that's all come in to play. What now sounds good, I hear other taxing entities have just told you how much they've lowered your tax rate. Well, the increase in value lowered everybody's tax rate to the no new revenue rate. We are actually down 3.84 cents in our proposed rate from where we were last year. That proposed rate is 0.5754 per $100 of valuation. And I'll get to an example that will bring that out for you. But overall, we've kept the tax rate what we think is reasonable. We did some increases in law enforcement salaries last year with ARPA funds that were allowed for that, but those will be gone in 3 years. So we started this year building in the tax replacement revenue to take care of that increase we did. Even with that increase of $7,800 in the jail, we're still in a big competition to find people to qualify to be jailers and to carry on what everyone expects the county to be able to do, is provide a safe place for the citizenry. We also, the debt rate went from 0.070528 cents to 0.06282890. So that came down. You think, well, that's good, but I'm going to have to tell you the rest of the story in a minute. We looked at across the board of our personnel. We gave a 5% raise for the people making $50,000 or less, and 3% for those making more than that. Now, unfortunately, if you're the person at $50,100, you didn't come out as well. That was, you wished it had been at $49,900 is the ideal place to be. But as Justice Holmes said, once you draw a line, it becomes arbitrary, and that was the line that I drew and presented it to the court, and so far everyone has felt like that was a reasonable way. We also looked at the areas we were losing people or not even getting applicants in our attorney area. We made significant adjustments to the attorneys and to staff in that area to keep paralegals, other quasi-professional people that everybody across the state's looking for. We increased last year our court reporters' salaries about 18% to try to stay competitive with court reporters, and yet we'll have, I was asking some of the other county judges at the meeting we were at last week what they were paying for court reporters, because I felt really good about our $100,000. And 2 smaller counties than us that are part of a 3 or 4 county judicial district are paying $110,000 to $118,000. So I don't want to tell our people about that. But it is a highly competitive area, and the court reporting schools, luckily we've had one start here at Vernon College. So we hope to see some proof in that come out, and we'll have some applicants here if they don't leave the area. We also made adjustments in the area for information technology and in the financial personnel we have. We were losing in the tax office. We were losing people that were mid-level bookkeeping and financial people, as well as losing them from our auditor's office and all. So we've hopefully done something to quit having that much expertise walking out the door for just some difference in money. And, you know, sometimes we try to say to the people, you know, are the benefits there? If I'm 24 to 35 years old, I just care about what that paycheck says. I'm not worried about retirement. I'm healthy. Health insurance is nice, but I don't think I need it particularly. So we offer those things, but it's really the salaries have got to be there to get them to look and stay. If you look at the 2023 budget, it increased cash-wise by over 23%, and that's through the tax increase, through the use of the ARPA funds, the American Recovery Plan Act. And we have broken those out, and we kind of joke, we got $25.6 million, and we've got $28 million easily in requests. So we're going to stick to that. We're going to do that, but we've done that to help with water distribution throughout the county. We've done it to help a few agencies. We the first ARPA money we gave out was to the Senior Citizen Center here in Wichita Falls for a mobile hot cold food truck that delivers meals once a week to people outside the city limits who may not be receiving services from one of the city senior citizen centers. Did that. We're also transferring funds. Since you're new, I was going to tell you, we're lucky, we're good stewards, we have money in the bank. And the goal for us is to have somewhere between 3 and 6 months of operating funds in case there's some kind of calamity, disaster. We run about around 4 months, Cheryl, I think is where we probably are. So we could stand it. It wouldn't be good if we had a call on the money we use. And somebody said, well, why don't you tax for that? Well, we have a lot of things that we can't say. We're only going to have 500 people in our jail. No matter what else anybody does, you got to be one of the lucky 500 to get to stay there. We don't have a way. We're not like the state of Texas. We right now have, Will, I think you told me we're down on the number we had waiting to go to the state jail or the criminal justice facilities, but we've got a few that are waiting, but it was quite a few for a while, and they made a pickup, I believe you told me last week.
They've been back picking up on a regular basis.
Okay,
So
so
our numbers are down a little bit in the jail.
yeah, but waiting to go to mental health institutions for months and months and months is better than 30, I think was what I saw.
Around 30, yeah.
Yeah, and then also the state has quit accepting juveniles that are convicted to go to there and not paying any kind of reimbursement or anything to us for keeping those people. And so that kind of thing makes it hard to budget when the system is not letting you move the people through. The other things we have that, I mentioned jail costs. We had $1 million increase in the jail health and mental health contract. And you say, wow, how did that happen? It was a thing by the legislature called the Sandra Bland Act, for the lady that committed suicide after she was arrested. Those increases, that was what we're doing. The medical care is appropriate, but there's no assistance from the state. And when you think of that $1 million I'm talking about, that's a little more than a penny of tax money. The other one we have is Indigent Defense. The amount of crime rate went up. The one that's most significant is we've had 8 murders in Wichita County. Murder defense is very expensive. Prosecution of it is very expensive. And we get to pay for both teams. And so we try to budget. Our DA does a good job of applying for those state reimbursements he can get, but we still pick up the majority of the tab for that. The other expenses in indigent health care. If you are at 20% of poverty or less, you can apply to the county to receive medical support. And it's limited to $30,000 a year. That law was passed long before medical costs, because that can go in one trip to the emergency room. And some of the people we have are seriously ill. The medications are very expensive, and the state will not reimburse for any more than that $30,000. So we try to manage work and do the things we can do. Commissioner Beecham oversees that area, and we try to make that work. And generally speaking, we're lucky that we don't get called upon but a few times for the 8% we have to set aside in the taxes. The real thing that it gets down to, and this gets the reality to all of this I've said, is you say, okay, what does this tax increase mean to me? Last year, if you had a $150,000 value home, you paid a tax rate of 0.613841, or in simple terms, you paid for county taxes $920.76. Okay, that same house, after the reevaluation of the property, is now $165,000. But this year, you'll pay only .57400 cents per hundred for $949.21, which nets out to being $28.45 more. So when you put it that way, most of us can't track that.
Yeah, ours went up, and we tracked it, we understand that.
Yeah. Now, you haven't seen.
For both the level of the county as well as the city.
Right.
We understand that.
Yeah.
That's
Not a lot of people don't. They all of a sudden saw their property value go up and they assumed their taxes, but the taxes aren't the same rate. In all of the entities, they should be less because of the increased property values. Now, theoretically, if there's no change, you'd pay the same as you did, but my feeling is for $28.45 on that, based on that value, that's not too bad. But I don't sit in your house, so I don't know what your bills are compared to mine.
Mine was a little bit more than $28 on the county level, but it wasn't.
Okay, what rate were you using to figure it? Were you using the rate we had last year?
We looked at the rate last year and the new rate coming out this year.
Oh, okay, you see.
Yeah, we
you
got
looked,
the comparison.
I thought the way you were nodding your head, you knew.
My husband is numbers anal.
Oh, okay.
So if you have a question about the numbers, he probably will answer every one of your questions or anything about anything you guys have to say on your numbers.
Well, we've had a gentleman for about the last 4 years since he moved here from Houston, does that for us also.
Yeah.
Be glad to add your husband. You know, the more eyes to look at it, the better we get. So,
He's a numbers guy.
okay.
I'm not so much, but he is. I mean, it's what he does.
Okay. All right, well, that's good to know. Okay. I'd like to say, Commissioners, I want to be sure and tell you all, I appreciate all the hours y'all put in on it, but I didn't know if any of y'all had additional comments you wanted to make on the budget or clarification or questions.
Judge, one thing that confuses a lot of people, I think, is the fact that they put an estimated tax on those appraisal
Yes.
notices, and sometimes I think that's counterproductive because that's just one leg of the chair. And you see that and you panic, and that's something we probably ought to talk about, is whether, I think that's probably mandated, Jim, you may know that, but
Is that number based on the previous tax rate? So it's not a real number. It's
Right.
It's a fictional
No, they-
number.
Yeah, that's
But
just the
I had
only,
people calling me that saw that, and they said, and I said,
And-
well, we haven't, we don't have the radios yet, so.
when those are published, your new values, then that's the only rate at the time they have to utilize.
But that sure leads to confusion.
It does.
Well, when we're capped out, there's no way we can, that number should be 3.5% of the new evaluation would be a more realistic view of that number.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can take that to.
Anybody have any questions on the phone or others, ma'am, do you have any?
Not yet.
Okay.
One, I'd just like to point out, Judge, that on those values this year and what we experienced, the year prior, we had about, so your house gets appraised, but all that you pay taxes on is 10% because it's your homestead of that value, 10% increase of that value. It could have went up $100,000. Your $100,000 home could have went up another $100,000, but you're only going to pay $110,000 net taxable against your tax rate. So what we were setting at $62 million roughly of it was $63.8 million worth of cap. So that means that there was that much value over 10% that we don't get to tax for. Your $200,000 home, we're only going to get to tax you on the $110,000. So the rest applies to the 62 I was talking about last year. That $63 million changed to $527 million after this appraisal, just because of increase in value and what had occurred across the county and across the state of Texas. We weren't exempt, and matter of fact, we were low compared to a lot of the state, but that cap changed, that much value to us lost. The county can't tax for that $527 million additional over the top of homesteads. And so it was just amazing to me, or it just kind of indicates how much appraisals did go up. But at the same time, that 10% cap protected a lot of people from an enormous increase.
We're also senior citizens, so we have that as our deductible also on that.
Right.
So I understand where all of that goes. I understand the taxation system, I do. I really do. Government needs money to operate. I do understand. Sometimes they don't agree with what you decide to put your dollar.
Judge, the 640 change, I can't identify 640. Maybe I should look at my cheat sheet Nancy had give us. Indigent
That's the one I asked
healthcare.
for.
Okay. I just wasn't registering with
Yeah.
me. Will had went over his with me independently when he were proposing, and of course they had much correspondence on that as well. But Nancy gave me another cheat sheet, and just with some of those changes, and I didn't recognize 640.
Okay. Anything else, gentlemen? Ms. Jones, any thoughts, or?
From a financial standpoint, with all of the raises and the extra cost and expense, if you do not raise the rate over the no new revenue rate, we cannot afford to do those things. Because of the way we budget, and we do base it on reserves, I know that typically we have not spent all of those, but if it is budgeted, they can legally spend it. If we spend all of 22 and everything that we have allocated for 23 without raising the rate, we will be up to $2.4 million only in reserves going into 2024. It is a scary number, and one that is not one we can live with. We can't keep moving on that. So those are things as y'all think about the rate that you want to pass. You can't have all of the expenses without, raising the revenue to pay for those. It's pretty dangerous. As it is, we're going in with 5.9, because the rate proposed by Judge Gossam raises 3.5 million roughly. So take that out. That's a very scary number. And there's nothing that says that once it's passed, they have the right to spend it, and I can't stop it in my office.
We're still exposed at that rate, both ways.
We
We're
are.
just not
Just not
as exposed, but,
Right.
but the difference between three, what,
3.5.
3.5 and 5.9, if we spend everything is really,
Yes.
yeah,
I mean, it's relative, for
yeah,
sure, but we can't tax for everything that we spend
No.
our money on.
no.
But we did get better with this budget. I will say that Munis has made the budgeting process
Much better.
better.
It's-
We're not there yet, but it is better. Last year in the 22 budget, we budgeted $22 million from reserves to come out to fund this. Going into this year, once you take out ARPA, we're only about 11. So we've cut that back in half. So it is still a very lean budget. Are we working towards better? Yes, but we've made a lot of stride in the 1 year.
One of the things we've talked about that I think we need to place emphasis on, excuse me, is looking at revenues. Due to the changeover and COVID, our fine and fee income is not what we would anticipate it to be, due to getting the offices in tune with the new financial software. The revenue out of the JP offices should be able to be picked up and brought in better. Commissioner Watts has traditionally done some work looking at our fee income, and we've made some adjustments in that for the first time in 4 years, Commissioner, I think it is. So, you know, those will go up this year and help some because, you know, I'm talking about things about delivering court service documents. Just look at the price of gas, cost of vehicles. The biggest thing that's killing us is the unavailability of vehicles to use for law enforcement purposes. You know, we've repaired 2 or 3 vehicles, the sheriff's over the last few months that probably you would have totaled and sent away, but, yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you know, Will would, and his crew would speak to us about Tahoe's replacement vehicles or upcoming vehicle needs. And I could multiply that number by $55,000 and probably be in the ballpark very good for an equipped police unit. And now that number has changed to $90,000. It's unbelievable. And it just is a real impact.
You know, those bicycles are looking better off.
Or one with a little gas motor.
Yeah. I
Just
saw
don't do
a guy
electric
doing the hotter than hell. I saw this bike coming along. I thought he's not even pedaling. He's passing people on it. You know. He had a little assist in that. But
I don't think the grid can take electric cars.
No.
yeah. Well, that's yeah. You ought to know that coming from California to hear that.
I was in the Nevada, on the Nevada side.
Okay,
of Death
yeah.
Valley, but yeah, we had all their solar in Death Valley and Mojave Desert area to support California because you can't put that crap over there. You have to put it in Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
And Nevada just gets ka-ching, ka-ching. We're happy to have your money.
Yeah.
So,
What did I see though, the federal fleet will go totally electric
About
by,
35,
is it 35 or
or else
25?
California's 35.
as California's in the 35. The thing is they don't have the electrical grid to support that.
No.
And they will be brown out and black for a lot of the time. There's just, people won't get to work because they're gonna have dead cars all over.
All over the place.
Yeah, the lithium mines in China are sure.
Our
happy
son
about
has
it.
a Tesla. I know how far he can go and it's gone. It's dead.
Yeah, they're not really suitable for Texas driving. They may work fine in New York City, but
If you get in a traffic jam and you're sitting there and it's hot, your battery goes. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Winter time and it's cold out, the batteries really have to work to keep the engines warm in an electric car. If it's otherwise, the car will die, but they'll die anyways. So the electric isn't the answer for any municipalities.
no.
I would get real mouthy on that one.
All right. It is 6:28, and we will adjourn this meeting.